We have a lot to do on Friday, and I don't think we're going to be able to do activity 26.3 justice on Friday. So I wanted to make this screencast, and hopefully you'll have time to watch it. The purpose of watching it would be to help you navigate this OECD website that'll be a source of data for your white paper assignment that's coming up in a couple weeks. Anyway, so the task was to um, pick one of those measures of either efficiency or equity and use the data at the OECD data page to analyze that. There's a lot of ways to go with it, but my conversation with Hunter after class uh, indicated that students had a hard time navigating the OECD page, and we shared some time exploring that idea, and I certainly was convinced how true that was. So I just wanted to make a screencast and give you some suggestions for navigating this site. So I'm not going to repeat exactly the exercise that Hunter and I went through, although that might be helpful. But I just wanted to pick a random one. So let's say I wanted to think about uh, quality of care, just as one of the efficiency measures. Hunter and I explored the idea of utilization, and here I am at that data page, and there's a ton here, but I found it true that the OECD website can be somewhat difficult to manage in the sense that it's hard to find what you're looking for, even when you know it's there. I often just Google, use the Google search to say, share of GDP healthcare, and go to the images section, get a bunch of charts, and I find oftentimes I find OECD charts that are exactly what I want, but I wanted to see if there's updated ones or whatever, so I go to the OECD tables, and even looking for something I know is there, I can't find it, and so I know it's frustrating, but if you're a little bit resilient, you may not find exactly the thing you know is there that you want to find, but you can find something that'll help you. So anyway, so I want to find something on quality of care, and I want to think of cross-national data. And there's just a ton of stuff here, and that can actually be a problem. Um, One thing I'm going to try is notice that we've got health at a glance, these OECD indicators, and this is going to be a bunch of stuff. And Hunter and I found that sometimes data for the US was reported, and sometimes data for the US, data as a plural word, data were not reported. Let's just see if there's some data on quality of care that includes information on the US. So this turns out to be a report. Let's see if it's free. Sometimes you hit a paywall, and I don't want you paying money for that, but oftentimes these international organizations have their stuff available for free. So here it is. Here's that report. It is probably a big report, and I certainly don't want you to read some big report, but scrolling can get us to a lot. Let's just look at this. So this is the executive summary. All these reports have this short form, just a few pages telling you the whole gist of the report. We see in this table of contents, boy, there's a lot there. So let's see what we can find. Quality and outcomes of care. Okay, so I want to find that. By the way, Hunter, if you're watching this, access to care is that, I bet there's just a bunch of stuff on that tab that would have helped us. Anyway, let's go to chapter 6, quality and outcomes of care. Safe primary care prescribing. I think just in terms of safe care, just access to care might be a good measure. And so I'm just scrolling down. So overall volume of opioids prescribed, notice that's one that doesn't have have information for the U.S., which that stinks for our purposes. Overall volume or of antibiotics prescribed, well, that probably does have the U.S. Maybe, as I say. We don't see the U.S. Yeah, so the notes tell us why. Data from European Center. That's where they get the data. The European data collector is who's giving us the data, but OECD doesn't have data for that. So okay, we struck out. So that's that. Quality of care. Let's see, foreign body left in during a procedure, and we have this is scaled per 100,000 hospital discharges, and I wonder why they've got these two groups of countries separated. And let's see if they do have United States data. So we see, on this is a good comparative care. If we want health quality of care, we see that per 100,000 hospital discharges, that the U.S. is on the high end of foreign body left in during a procedure. So that's some data, some information on the notion that the U.S. Quality of care is not ranking among the best, right? That's a bad one. And we could percentage of hospitalized patients with at least one healthcare associated infection. And here we're focusing in on hospitalized patients, and actually on this one the U.S. does pretty well. Okay, so we've got a mixed bag. Adverse events in hip and knee surgeries, post-operative. Okay, let's go for one more. Again, they've got this split, and I'm not using linked data versus unlinked data. Okay, I guess we could click on these and go right to the country data page. And here we have the U.S. again on the hips is not as bad as Australia and France, but it's pretty bad. Now, one thing we don't have are knee replacements routinely given to poor candidates for knee replacements in the U.S., or it's just the same type of person has a worse knee replacement in the U.S. We oftentimes our data leaves us wanting, but we do the best we can, and having multiple measures would give a good sense of what that is. Not 2 or 3, not 10, because we don't want to spend our whole time. And then it goes on. Obstetric trauma. Childbirth is hazardous in some countries and not hazardous in a lot of countries, and so where does the U.S. stand on that? That would be a good indicator. Trauma in a vaginal delivery, and we see actually interesting. Canada is really the worst of these countries, but the U.S. is right up there with the worst, and so there you'd have some more data that the U.S. system certainly isn't on the high end of quality, and in some stats is very much on the low end. Here it's in the middle. And that's a delivery. This was delivery with instrument. I suppose that indicates some sort of trauma, some sort of complication. This is without an instrument, and the U.S. is more toward the middle of the pack there. And so on. So that's how you use this. Now that I'm at this point, I don't see what minutes I'm at, but in case I'm not way over 15 minutes, I just wanted to look and see for Hunter and my sake how the data on utilization looks over at this source. Hunter and I didn't find this source together. All right, an introduction, a bit about the data. Need adjusted probability of visiting a doctor by day. This looks like one that Hunter and I did find, but this one does have U.S. data, and on this, here one of the problems with the U.S. is access this is looking sort of bad. So the countries are ranked left to right from worst to best, it looks like to me. And so we see a few things. The data, this is a really good exhibit of data. I want to show you a few things about what's going on here. So it looks like the overall rate is that sort of orange bar, but then they give us some on distribution. We can see how rich people do and how poor people do. And so by how long that the distance is between the two diamonds, we can see how poorly how inegalitarianly, how unequally is the word I'm looking for, healthcare is distributed in the U.S. So this would be a real good exhibit. You probably would only need one if you were looking for data on utilization. The U.S. stinks, and what's more, it doesn't stink too bad if you're rich, but if you're poor, it really stinks. So this would be a great exhibit. So this kind of thing is there, as we see. Sometimes you have to dig for it, but I don't know of a better international comparative site. And really, when we ask how does the U.S. do, we have to say, well, how do other rich countries handle it? And if it's an impossible problem and nobody does well, okay, it stinks in the U.S., stinks everywhere. But if it's a problem that other countries have solved with fewer resources often, then we can conclude the U.S. could make significant improvement. All right. As I mentioned, there's my button.